she'll listen closely. When darkness wraps the world and dreams begin to stir, you've arrived at the right place. Welcome to Between Dreams and Shadows, the sanctuary of stories that live between sleep and the unknown. Here, every tale is more than a story. It's a portal to hidden worlds, forgotten secrets, whispers from beyond, and shadows that speak as your eyes begin to close. If you're drawn to mysteries, haunting legends, and stories that send shivers down your spine, this channel is your new nighttime ritual. Before we begin, I invite you to become part of this growing nightbound community. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a tale. New stories drop regularly, always under the veil of night. Like this video if you enjoy that chill before sleep. It helps this channel grow and lets me bring you deeper, darker stories. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a strange dream or felt something watching in the dark? Your experience might inspire the next tale now. Take a deep breath, turn off the lights, leave the world behind, and get ready to drift between dreams and shadows. Setting the atmosphere, the clock read 3:17 a.m. The world outside my window stood utterly still, so still, in fact, that even the usual hum of the distant freeway had vanished, as though the world had been placed on mute. I lay in bed, unmoving, not from fatigue but from a quiet tension coiling in the base of my spine. It was that kind of stillness that wasn't peaceful, but expectant. Like the air itself was holding its breath. My name is Lena. I don't live in a haunted house or near some forgotten cemetery. Just a quiet apartment on the third floor of a nondescript building in a sleepy town. Nothing about my life had ever been strange until recently. It started with a dream. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone dreams, right? But this one, it was different. Every time I closed my eyes, I was standing in the same place, a corridor, dim and endless, lined with doors that seemed alive. Behind each one, whispers. Behind one, a voice that knew my name. I never saw who it belonged to. I only heard it, barely above a whisper, calling Lena. Come here, I've been waiting. I'd wake up each time at exactly the same moment, just as I placed my hand on the cold brass knob of the final door. It was never frightening, not at first, but it was invasive, like something had crawled into my thoughts and made a home. There. The voice came every night. Its tone never changed, calm, patient, and strangely familiar. It didn't demand or threaten, it simply asked, invited. That the oddest part was how peaceful it made me feel. Not safe, no, more like ... sedated. As if the fear should be there, but wasn't being allowed to rise. Then last night something changed. When I awoke, I wasn't just in bed. I was standing in my kitchen, barefoot. The stove light was on, humming gently. I must have been sleepwalking, I told myself. Stress, maybe. I poured a glass of water with shaking hands, trying not to notice the lingering scent of something burnt, as if something had been cooked and left too long. I didn't eat anything that day. I didn't cook, but the scent clung to the air like a warning. And that voice, it stayed with me, even awake. Sometimes I'd catch it between the lines of a TV program. Other times it hummed behind music, or in the quiet buzz of silence. It was always just below perception, but always there. Now, tonight, something is different again. The air in my apartment feels thinner. The shadows on the wall flicker, even though no lights are moving. The refrigerator hum has stopped, and I can feel something, not watching me. Not yet, but waiting. Just like in the dream. I don't know why, but I get this sense that tonight, the voice won't just stay in the dream. The first signs of disturbance, I tried to distract myself, watched videos, read articles, anything to ignore the heaviness crawling beneath my skin, but it didn't work. My thoughts kept drifting back to the dream, back to that voice. Then the subtle shifts began. At first it was my bedroom door. I had closed it. I know I had. But when I turned from the hallway to grab my phone, it was open just a crack, not wide enough to see into the room, just enough to suggest it wanted to be seen. I told myself I had forgotten, but my gut told me otherwise. A few hours later, I heard the kitchen drawer click. It's an unmistakable sound, one of those small metal runners sticking, then snapping loose. I crept toward the kitchen slowly, my heartbeat trying to outrun my steps. The drawer was open, not wide, just an inch, and the handle of a butter knife glinted out in the half-light, like a tooth. Still, I refused to panic. These were minor things. A tired mind makes mistakes. That's all it was. That's what I told myself. But even as I closed the drawer, I could feel something behind me, not physically, not enough to turn around, but emotionally, like an echo of presence, a pressure. The lights began to misbehave next. My bathroom light flickered exactly 3 times before going completely dark. When I tried the switch, nothing happened. I figured the bulb had finally gone, but something made me uneasy. It wasn't just the flickering, it was the timing. Always 3. Each time I passed a light, it would blink 3 times, then go steady. It felt deliberate, almost playful, like someone or something was mimicking a pattern, reaching out. The mirrors started reacting next, a ripple across the surface, like water disturbed by breath. But only when I walked away. I tested it once, brushed my teeth, turned away, then snapped my head back. The mirror was perfectly still, but my reflection wasn't. Just for a second, it hadn't moved with me. It had lingered. That's when I started writing things down. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Every event, every oddity, I dated and logged them. A list began to form. I wanted logic, structure, control, but fear doesn't follow rules, and reality doesn't care about your lists. The shadows in my apartment seemed longer than they should be. I began avoiding corners, even in daylight. There was a strange habit forming. I wouldn't turn my back to doorways anymore. I couldn't. Something in me screamed not to. I'd catch myself pausing, mid-sentence, staring at a space where nothing moved. But I felt something move. Like a trick of the eye, that wasn't a trick at all. And the voice. It stopped waiting for sleep now. It comes when I'm awake, soft, gentle, barely above a whisper. You're almost there, Lena, just a little closer. Every night, it grows louder. Every night, I understand a little more of what it wants, but I don't understand why it chose me, or what happens when I finally follow it completely. The sound, that shouldn't exist, it began with a hum. At first I thought it was the radiator, or maybe the old wiring in the walls, just the usual background noises a building makes when it breathes at night. But this sound, it didn't come from any one place. It came from everywhere, low, pulsing, like the sound of something alive resting just beneath the floorboards. A steady vibration that I didn't hear so much as feel, crawling up through the soles of my feet, into my bones. I muted everything, TV, phone, laptop, panned. Still, the sound continued, as if it had always been there, just waiting for silence to be noticed. Then came the whispering, not the soft internal kind you can dismiss as imagination. No, this whisper had texture, breath. It moved the air, a faint hiss, like someone standing inches from my ear, lips barely moving, murmuring syllables I couldn't understand. One night, as I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to focus on anything but the hum, I heard it clearly. Do you remember the garden? I froze, not because I recognized the voice, but because I didn't. It wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was male, soft, smooth, and impossibly close. But I was alone in the room. I had locked the door. I had checked under the bed. Still, the words echoed in my mind like a memory I had never lived. I tried to speak, to say something, anything. But the moment I opened my mouth, a faint knock came from my bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. The sound wasn't loud, but it was deliberate. Like knuckles, softly tapping on glass. 3 times. Always 3. I turned, slowly, heart pounding in my throat, and approached the window. Nothing, just the empty night sky, heavy with clouds. But the glass was fogged, as though someone or something had breathed on it from the outside. That same night, the hum returned stronger. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was layered like a choir of broken radios, whispering secrets in a language older than memory. I turned on every light, every screen, tried to drown it out. But the moment silence returned, so did the sound. Then, the phone rang. No caller, ID, just a blank screen and a vibration that seemed to shake the entire room. I answered. For 5 seconds, I heard nothing. No breath, no static. Then very faintly, as though someone was speaking through miles of water. You opened the door, Lena. You let us in. Click. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. The voice had changed again. It was neither male nor female, not just wrong. As though it didn't know what it was supposed to sound like anymore. As though it was learning. The line between waking and dreaming was beginning to blur. Some nights, I'd hear the voice whispering to me before I fell asleep. Other nights, I'd hear it when I woke up, and always, it asked the same question. Why did you stop listening? I haven't answered. Not yet, but I fear the time is coming when I'll have no choice, because now the hum is inside the walls, and the whisper has started calling from places inside my apartment. The presence without a face, it didn't walk, it didn't knock. It simply was like a thought that you didn't think, but somehow still had dot. It started subtly. I'd set something down, a glass, my keys, a book hand. When I turned around, it had shifted, just slightly, just enough to make me question if I had really placed it there at all. I began to second-guess myself, rechecking, watching, leaving objects in precise positions, only to find them changed again the next morning. The coaster askew, the book closed when I'd left it open. Then came the cold, not a chill from an open window, but something far more unnatural, like the air had been drained of its warmth, of its life. The hallway between my room and the kitchen grew 10 degrees, colder, no matter the thermostat setting. Walking through it felt like passing through water, thick, unseen, heavy, and worse than that, I could feel eyes. Not watching from any single point, but everywhere, all at once, as if the walls themselves were aware of me. I tried to ignore it, burying myself in routine, coffee, shower, work, sleep. But routine doesn't help when it's being observed. One night, as I brushed my teeth, I caught a glimpse of something behind me in the mirror. It wasn't a face, not quite. It was the suggestion of one, a ripple in the reflection. Like the mirror had flexed, bent slightly outward, in the shape of a head that should not have been there. I spun around. Nothing, but when I turned back, the toothbrush was gone from my hand. I found it the next morning, in the freezer. The whispering had grown braver. I'd hear it now in broad daylight, beneath the static of the television, behind the whir of the fan. Once, it called my name from inside the kitchen sink. Not loud, not aggressive. Calm. Too calm. Lena, like a secret someone wanted me to remember. One evening, while reading on the couch, the lamp beside me flickered off. I reached out to turn. The switch hand felt it. Not a hand, not a touch. A presence. Warm air displaced. The sense of a body moving just out of reach. I held my breath, muscles frozen, my fingertips still hovering near the lamp. Then, a soft breath against my ear. No words, just breath. I turned violently, heart hammering in my chest, but the room was empty. Nothing moved, nothing sounded. But I could no longer shake the truth. I wasn't alone. Whatever it was, it had no face, no form, but it wanted me to know. It was there. It wanted me to feel it. At night, I'd hear it moving through the apartment, soft, deliberate footsteps, floorboards, creaking under a weight that never appeared, shadows stretching in ways that defied the angle of the light, and sometimes, It would sit. I could sense it at the edge of my bed. Not touching, not speaking. Just being. Watching. A pressure in the air. Like gravity shifting in only one direction. And every time I tried to speak, every time I whispered a question into the dark silence, but the air would answer with a cold pulse, as though it was listening, waiting, encouraging, and deep inside, I began to understand. Isolation does not mean safety, because even when I was completely alone, it was never gone. The unspoken warning had stopped hiding. Not completely, no. That would have been too easy, too merciful. Instead, it began to reveal itself in fragments. Small, precise acts of disruption that made one thing clear. It wanted me to notice. I woke one morning to find symbols drawn on the fogged mirror in the bathroom. Not words, not language, just shapes, concentric circles, slashes, and intersecting lines I'd never seen before. I hadn't taken a shower yet. The glass wasn't fogged.end yet. The markings were there. I reached up to wipe them away, but my hand stopped mid-air. Not out of fear, out of respect. Something told me they weren't meant to be touched that day. Every clock in my apartment stopped at 3:17 p.m. Digital, analog. Even the microwave timer. The power hadn't gone out. My phone kept time just fine, but everything else had paused, frozen as though that specific minute had demanded the attention of the room. At exactly 3:17 p.m. the next day, the hallway light turned on by itself. No flicker, just on, and from the darkness beyond it, I heard a knock. Not on the door, not on the walls. It came from inside the hallway. 3 deliberate knocks, slow, measured, final. Knock. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body had become an anchor. Muscles tensed, breathing shallow. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring into the hallway that led to nothing but shadows and that ever-present cold. And then I heard something worse than the knocking. The floor whispered. I don't know how else to describe it. The wood itself seemed to hum, not vibrate, not creak, but speak, in some ancient rhythm that made the hair on my arms rise, as if it were warning me, or inviting me. That evening, I found all the photos in my apartment turned backward. Every frame, every image, faces hidden. I didn't touch them. I didn't dare. That night, the whisper came again, but this time it was closer. You came back, soft, feminine, familiar, but distorted, as though someone I loved was speaking through water. I hadn't told anyone what was happening, not yet, but that voice, something in it, pierced through my defenses. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was curiosity, because part of me knew that voice, and I couldn't remember why. I began to notice the patterns. The markings on the mirror repeated themselves, forming a sequence. Always 3 symbols. Always at 3:17 p.m. I started drawing them in a notebook, hoping for clarity. The final trio chilled me to the core. A closed eye. An open mouth. A hand reaching down. What did it mean? That night, a photo reappeared face up on my table. One I'd never taken. It was a picture of me, asleep in my bed, taken from above. My heart skipped. I lived alone, and in the top corner of the photo, a symbol was drawn in black ink. The same closed eye. A warning, a message, or maybe a memory. I began to sense the shape of something beneath all this. Not a haunting, not a dream, a design. The presence wasn't random. It wasn't lost. It was following steps, deliberate ones. And every time I tried to ignore it, it simply got closer. The moment of truth I couldn't pretend anymore. Not to myself. Not to the stillness that listened. This thing, this presence, wasn't just playing with me. It was leading me, and I was following, piece by piece, against my own will. Or maybe because some hidden part of me needed to. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited. The clock hit 3:17 a.m., not p.m. this time, and something changed. The light above my bed dimmed. Not with a flicker, but a smooth, unnatural fade. Shadows stretched across the ceiling like arms reaching for something just out of frame. The air grew heavier, as if breathing had become a task rather than a reflex. And then, the whisper returned. "You're almost there." It wasn't distant anymore. It wasn't underwater. It was beside my ear. I turned quickly. Nothing. No one. Just the silence thick with expectation. I knew then, the question was no longer what was happening. The question had become why me. In the weeks that led to this moment, I had remembered fragments. A forest road I didn't recall driving. A name in the back of my mind I couldn't quite pronounce. A dream, no. A memory of standing at the foot of a spiral staircase. Somewhere deep below ground, with that same voice calling down to me. One more step. I checked the notebook again. This time, the symbols had rearranged themselves. I hadn't moved the pages, but they had flipped in my sleep. Now the drawings told a different story. A progression, a map, and at the center of it all, a spiral staircase. That staircase I had seen before, but it wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a place, a real place. I traced the symbols, my finger trembling, and realized they aligned with a park on the edge of the city. There was an old estate there burnt down years ago. Only the foundations remained, buried in weeds and concrete bones. I didn't hesitate. I should have, but I didn't. The city was asleep as I walked, guided by some invisible tether. Every street lamp seemed to blink just as I passed. Every alley whispered in the corner of my hearing. The dark was alive now. It knew me. The entrance to the old estate was sealed by rusted gates, broken just wide enough for someone thin to slip through. I did. Trees hunched over the path like silent witnesses, limbs tangled like fingers. The moon didn't reach here. It was black as ink, save for the dim glow of my flashlight and the pounding of my heart. And then, I saw it, exactly as I had. In the dream, the spiral staircase, stone, wet, old, descending into nothing. There was no building left above it, just a gaping hole in the ground, ringed with crumbled brick and vines. My breath caught. Everything told me to turn back, to go home, to forget. But I stepped forward, one foot onto the top stair, and the moment I did, the air around me changed. The sounds of the forest disappeared. No wind, no crickets, no world, just a soft hum, low, vibrating in my bones. The staircase wanted me to go down. But I paused, and for the first time, I spoke aloud to the presence I could feel pressing around me. "Why?" I whispered. The answer came, not in words, but in a sound, a memory, a cry, my cry, a child's voice, echoing from the dark below. "Please don't leave me again." And I remembered. The inevitability of darkness, the memory struck like a bolt of cold lightning. That voice, the child's cry, it wasn't just familiar. It was mine. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. I had heard myself cry like that once, long ago, in a place buried so deeply in my mind that only this dream, no, this calling, could unearth it. I stared down the staircase. Each step seemed darker than the last, spiraling into an abyss without end. The flashlight flickered, resisting, as if it too was afraid of where I was going. Still, I descended. The first few steps were wet with condensation, slick and treacherous. The stone was ancient, worn smooth by time, or by those who had walked it before. The deeper I went, the quieter the world above became until there was only my breath, the echo of my footsteps, and that humming, a constant hum. It vibrated in the walls, in my ribs, in the marrow of my bones. This wasn't just sound, it was invitation. I passed remnants of what once had been old iron sconces, now rusted, bits of cloth snagged on the stone, a child's toy half buried in dust, its fabric mouth torn open in a silent scream. And then, the walls began to pulse. Not physically, but in my perception. like a heartbeat I couldn't trace. That's when I saw it. A door, ancient, wood, but not decayed, carved with symbols like the ones in my notebook. Only these burned faintly red, as if smoldering just beneath the surface. I reached for the handle, but my hand trembled uncontrollably. My instincts screamed. This door was not meant to be opened, not by anyone, and certainly not by someone who had followed whispers and drawings and dreams. But I wasn't anyone, was I? I was the one being called back. I was the child who had once stood here. Tears welled in my eyes, though I couldn't explain why. Grief gripped me, not for the dead, not for the past, but for something lost, something I had forgotten to protect. I opened the door. Behind it was a room, circular, stone walls, etched with more glowing symbols. The humming louder now, a ritual space, but empty, save for a mirror tall, black, and seamless. Not a reflection, but a surface, flat, dead, until it wasn single quotes, until it breathed. A fog rolled across it, and slowly, my reflection appeared. But it wasn't me now. It was me as a child, dirty, wide-eyed, lips trembling. He looked straight into my soul and whispered, "You left me here." And I remembered. I had wandered into the estate as a child. My parents had fought again. I ran, hid, found the staircase, followed a voice that called my name, down dot. And then I screamed, but no one came, until I had forgotten it all. I had left a piece of myself here abandoned, and crying, a memory, a soul fragment, and now it was alive, still here, still waiting. The boy in the mirror raised his hand. I didn't move. He placed his palm flat against the glass. I felt warmth on my hand. I hadn't raised it. Something was reaching through me. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. My body no longer belonged entirely to me. The fear that stays my fingers were not my own. They lifted slowly, trembling as they mirrored the boy behind the glass. No, in the glass. He was still me, and yet not. A broken sliver of my soul sealed away in an old dark place that remembered everything I had forced myself to forget. The second my palm touched the cold surface of the mirror, the humming stopped. Everything stopped. Time froze. Even the dust in the air held its breath. And then, the boy smiled. It wasn't a grin of warmth or joy. It was hollow, knowing, triumphant. The mirror rippled like water, and a soundless scream erupted from inside. I couldn't hear it, but I felt it like nails dragging across every thought, every memory I had buried to keep going in life. The world began to tilt. The mirror wasn't a mirror anymore. It was an opening, a way through, and I stepped forward, not out, but in. My legs moved without permission. My body leaned forward as if pulled by a force more intimate than gravity. Regret, guilt, truth. My foot crossed the threshold. A rush of images slammed into my mind. A ritual I had stumbled into as a child. A shape without a name beckoning me closer. A promise I had made to escape it. A deal I had never remembered. Until now. I had walked out that day, but something had stayed behind, and now it wanted back in. Or maybe it never truly left. As I stepped fully through the glass, everything reversed. The staircase above vanished. The stone walls smoothed into black nothingness. All around me, an endless void of silence. No ground, no sky dot, just that humming again. Deeper now, lower, more resonant. I looked down at myself. I was no longer holding the flashlight. I wasn't even holding form. I had become awareness. Trapped, reflected on the other side of the mirror. Back in the ritual room stood a figure. It had my eyes. It wore my skin, but it wasn't me anymore. It turned, leaving me behind, and as it walked away, my scream finally tore free. But there was no one to hear it, except the mirror, and you. Because, now, the voice that once called to me in my dreams whispers to you. You may not hear it tonight, but soon, in your sleep. It will speak. It will sound like your own voice, and it will say, "Come back. You forgot something." It doesn't matter if you remember. It remembers you, and it waits, silently, forever. The fear that stays my fingers were not my own. They lifted slowly, trembling as they mirrored the boy behind the glass. No, in the glass. He was still me, and yet not. A broken sliver of my soul sealed away in an old, dark place that remembered everything I had forced myself to forget. The second my palm touched the cold surface of the mirror, the humming stopped. Everything stopped. Time froze. Even the dust in the air held its breath. And then, the boy smiled. It wasn't a grin of warmth or joy. It was hollow, knowing, triumphant. The mirror rippled like water, and a soundless scream erupted from inside. I couldn't hear it, but I felt it like nails dragging across every thought, every memory I had buried to keep going in life. The world began to tilt. The mirror wasn't a mirror anymore. It was an opening, a way through, and I stepped forward, not out, but in. My legs moved without permission. My body leaned forward as if pulled by a force more intimate than gravity. Regret, guilt, truth. My foot crossed the threshold. A rush of images slammed into my mind. A ritual I had stumbled into as a child, a shape without a name beckoning me closer. A promise I had made to escape it. A deal I had never remembered. Until now. I had walked out that day, but something had stayed behind, and now it wanted back in. Or maybe it never truly left. As I stepped fully through the glass, everything reversed. The staircase above vanished. The stone walls smoothed into black nothingness. All around me, an endless void of silence. No ground, no sky dot, just that humming again. Deeper now, lower, more resonant. I looked down at myself. I was no longer holding the flashlight. I wasn't even holding form. I had become awareness. Trapped, reflected on the other side of the mirror. Back in the ritual room, stood a figure. It had my eyes. It wore my skin, but it wasn't me anymore. It turned, leaving me behind, and as it walked away, my scream finally tore free. But there was no one to hear it, except the mirror, and you. Because, now, the voice that once called to me in my dreams, whispers to you. You may not hear it tonight, but soon, in your sleep, it will speak. It will sound like your own voice, and it will say, "Come back. You forgot something." It doesn't matter if you remember. It remembers you, and it waits, silently, forever. The fear that stays my fingers were not my own. They lifted slowly, trembling as they mirrored the boy behind the glass. No, in the glass. He was still me, and yet not. A broken sliver of my soul sealed away in an old, dark place that remembered everything I had forced myself to forget. The second my palm touched the cold surface of the mirror, the humming stopped. Everything stopped. Time froze. Even the dust in the air held its breath. And then, the boy smiled. It wasn't a grin of warmth or joy. It was hollow, knowing, triumphant. The mirror rippled like water, and a soundless scream erupted from inside. I couldn't hear it, but I felt it like nails dragging across every thought, every memory I had buried to keep going in life. The world began to tilt. The mirror wasn't a mirror anymore. It was an opening, a way through, and I stepped forward, not out, but in. My legs moved without permission. My body leaned forward as if pulled by a force more intimate than gravity. Regret, guilt, truth. My foot crossed the threshold. A rush of images slammed into my mind. A ritual I had stumbled into as a child, a shape without a name beckoning me closer. A promise I had made to escape it. A deal I had never remembered. Until now. I had walked out that day, but something had stayed behind, and now it wanted back in. Or maybe it never truly left. As I stepped fully through the glass, everything reversed. The staircase above vanished. The stone walls smoothed into black nothingness. All around me, An endless void of silence, no ground, no sky dot, just that humming again. Deeper now, lower, more resonant. I looked down at myself. I was no longer holding the flashlight. I wasn't even holding form. I had become awareness, trapped, reflected on the other side of the mirror. Back in the ritual room stood a figure. It had my eyes. It wore my skin, but it wasn't me anymore. It turned, leaving me behind, and as it walked away, my scream finally tore free. But there was no one to hear it, except the mirror, and you. Because, now, the voice that once called to me in my dreams, whispers to you. You may not hear it tonight, but soon, in your sleep, it will speak. It will sound like your own voice, and it will say, "Come back, you forgot something." It doesn't matter if you remember. It remembers you, and it waits, silently, forever. What do you think really happened down in that basement? Was the protagonist ever truly free? Or was it all part of something deeper? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you're still brave enough, click on another tale before the night steals your name too. Until then, don't follow the voice. Just pretend you didn't hear it.